Well, Clive Allen joins us now. Clive, one of my favourite all-time footballers. Clive, let's look back on QPR's run to the 81-82 FA Cup final. It's 40 years ago now. That's incredible, isn't it?
Time flies, yeah. But it was obviously special times for the club. We were a second division team at that time, but had high hopes of having a good cup run, as you do when it all starts.
Okay, well, let's go through it. And we started with a home tie against Middlesbrough. We were underdogs because, as you said, we were second division. They were in the first division. It was 1-1 at home. We won 3-2 away. Warren Neal, the winning goal with a diving header. What do you remember of those occasions?
Well, I think the game at Loftus Road was very tight. They were a good side, Middlesbrough, and I think that obviously ending up with a draw, we were thinking it was going to be very, very tough now to go to the old Ayresome Park and get a result. And I'll never forget that game where it was nip and tuck, obviously 2-2, and where Warren arrived from, I just don't know. I'm not sure if it was actually his debut or it certainly was one of his very first games. He was an outstanding right back, but to turn up with a diving header was quite something. And I think probably at that moment we all thought, wow, this could be something. This could be something special, because that was a big result to go away to Middlesbrough and win 3-2.
So in the fourth round, we're drawn away to Blackpool, and they're the underdogs. It was a 0-0 draw, but that was a really tough game. We almost got knocked out, didn't we?
We did, yeah, Tony. That was a horrible game. I remember the conditions were awful, wet and windy. We didn't play particularly well. We certainly didn't play the football that we knew we were capable of. And I'm not sure exactly, but I think that they hit the post as well quite late in the game at 0-0. So we escaped that one. We got away with it. I think we were happy that we got the draw and we got the chance to go back to Loftus Road.
And back at Loftus Road, we won 5-1. Simon Stainor scored a penalty, but you scored 4 that night. You obviously enjoyed those sort of occasions.
Yeah, that was a great night. I remember that night because we played some really slick football. I think we moved the ball really well. We won well. I was very very happy to score the goals I did. And I remember I broke my scaphoid in my hand. One of the goals, just towing it past the goalkeeper and getting flipped up in the air and landing awkwardly on my left arm, and actually broke the scaphoid. So I still can feel that to this day. It's still something that I carry with me. But so that always relates to that particular game, that Blackpool victory and the 4 FA Cup goals that night.
And on to Grimsby in the next round. We won 3-1 again. You scored, and that was a comfortable victory, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was. I think we were at that time going really well in the league. We were playing some really good football. We were at home, and I think we made that count that day. That was a performance where we were. I remember we were in control of the game, and it was a good result. And all of a sudden, I think then you're starting to think, wow, we could really do something now, because we were going into the latter stages of the competition.
Do you remember in those days that the cup draws used to be live on the radio on a Monday? There was great excitement, wasn't there?
Absolutely, yeah. It was always fantastic, because if you got your victory and you were in the hat, everything. I always remember walking back in dressing rooms for years and years after that in the FA Cup. It didn't matter how you played; it was just all about the result. If you got a result, I always remember so many times you walk in and players would scream, well, we're in the hat on Monday, and that was the most important thing.
So momentum was building, and we got some good home draws, didn't we? We were good on that plastic pitch at Loftus Road in those days, weren't we?
We were. I think it just suited the players we had. We had so many good ball players from the back right the way throughout the team. We passed the ball well. I think we were technically a good side. We had some pace as well. So we were set up, I think, really well to take on anybody on that surface. And as the season obviously unfolded, we were going really well in the league, and things were really good. We were always confident at home playing on that at Loftus Road.
There were 4 or 5 of you, yourself included, who'd come up through the youth team, and you just seemed to have the spirit and the ethos of the club in your blood, and the fans would give you that extra cheer, wouldn't they? They'd respond to you as former youth team players.
Yeah, the crowd were fantastic. I think they appreciated that. They'd seen us grow at the club. They'd seen us establish ourselves. And as you say, having 4 or 5 players that had all come through the ranks together, I think there was a real bond and a belief amongst us. And we knew at times if we weren't playing particularly well that we could still get results. And I think that came through in certainly in the cup run and certainly that season.
And on to the quarter-final, it was a big one, Palace at home. You'd been away and had a spell at Palace and come back. Terry Venables had been there. There were a few of you, weren't there? Terry Fennick, Mike Flanagan. It was a big game, wasn't it? It
was a massive game, yeah. There was lots of connections, obviously, with players who had played there. Terry had managed there, and the experience I'd had there myself. And that was just one of those games that, regardless of what happened, we just had to win. You just wanted to win it, and I think it wasn't a pretty match. It was pretty ugly at times. We never really got going. We didn't play the football that we knew we could. I would say they did a job on us in terms of stifling our style. And I think when I did manage to score the goal, it was just so much relief of the frustration of the experience I'd had while at Palace. It all came out in a crazy celebration.
We'll talk about that in a minute. But let's talk about the goal. It was 2 minutes to go. It was a typical Clive Allen goal, but take us through it. It came from a corner, didn't it, on the right by Tony Curry? I think.
Yeah, it was a corner kick that was flicked on, and eventually it reached me. I was probably about 10 yards out on a slight angle, and I actually controlled it with my back to goal. But I remember I managed to sort of swivel and pivot. And I just struck it really sweetly. It wasn't the most fantastic goal, but from a goal scorer's point of view, it was a really important goal for me. And as soon as I hit it, I knew it was going in. There was lots of bodies, there was lots of legs, and there was probably just a little window that I could strike it through, and it went perfectly into the bottom corner. And obviously, the whole place just went absolutely crazy. It was brilliant, great. I think fantastic reaction from everybody that that was going to win the game.
So tell us about the celebration. The goal was at the loft, and you ran 100 yards, didn't you, down to where the Palace fans were?
I ran towards the Palace fans. Yeah, I think it was Gary Waddock who actually tried to rugby tackle me. I broke his rugby tackle. I kept going. And then I just started dancing. I didn't know what I was doing, to be honest, but I was just absolutely, so much relief was released. And it was quite something. I was jigging and dancing and punching the air, and the Palace fans weren't happy. Obviously the Rangers supporters were absolutely ecstatic. It was just brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Fantastic. And then, I don't know if you remember this, but there was still a couple of minutes to go. And then when it was approaching 90 minutes, I think the referee blew for a free kick. The fans thought it was the final whistle. Fans spilled on. The pitch had to be cleared. And the last minute or so was played with a human touchline of about 10,000 people on the side of the pitch. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember the fans coming on, and we was obviously at great pace trying to, you got to get back. We've got to finish the game. We still had a few minutes to play. And I remember them obviously not going back over the walls, but standing on the touchline. So it was quite something at Loftus Road that day. And obviously, once the final whistle went, everybody was on the field. There was a complete melee, and it was just great to be able to celebrate with the fans. And then obviously we got off back into the dressing room, and it was I would say one of the most ecstatic dressing rooms I've ever been in at that time.
Great spirit in that squad. So let's go forward now to the semi-final. It was West Brom at Highbury. In the end, it was another great Clive Allen day. But first of all, let's put the occasion into context. Again, we were underdogs. West Brom were in the top flight in the first division, and they had Cyril Regis. Everybody was talking about how good Cyril Regis was up front, weren't they?
Yeah, they were an excellent team. They were a really well-balanced team. And in Cyril, they had one of the best centre forwards in the country at the time. I remember our preparation in the week was really detailed. I remember Terry Venables obviously speaking to Bob Hazel and just, I think, really encouraging him to say, you know, you can deal with Cyril Regis. Cyril might be a good player, but he's not going to want to play against Bob Hazel. And I think Bob rose to that challenge. That was one of, I think, Bob's best games for the club. It was such an important game. He had such a big part to play, because to keep Cyril Regis quiet at that time was going to be, you know, a really, really difficult job. And he was magnificent that day. I remember it. It was a bobbly Highbury. It wasn't a great surface to play the type of football we wanted to play. But I think our organisation was really good. Our discipline in terms of playing against what was they were a physical side, West Brom as well. And we handled everything that they had to throw at us. And obviously I was, you know, an FA Cup semi-final is the one game, any semi-final, you never ever want to lose, and you really are not worried how you play. What the performance is like is about a result, and obviously we got that all important result. I always say to this day, I've still got the ball print on my right kneecap, which it struck and flew into the bottom corner. But it was the sweetest of goals, and obviously again the celebrations after were magnificent.
Yeah, that's probably what it needed to win that game. It was about 20 minutes to go. It was so tight. There were very few chances. And as we said, it was Ali Robertson, wasn't it, their defender, who came across to clear, but you just blocked it. And it was a scruffy goal, but a great goal.
Yeah, it was a strange one, because as the ball bounced, Ali Robertson got there first, and I was closing him down, and I just sensed that he might be trying to clear it rather than obviously knock it and concede a corner, that he might try to clear it square and out for a throw-in. And I literally just stuck a right leg out. And as I say, it hit me flush on the kneecap, and it just absolutely flew past the keeper. He couldn't react to it. And our supporters were at end, and obviously I wheeled away straight away to the supporters. And as you say, it was such a tight game that, again, that one goal was gonna be the difference. And fortunately, we were the team that got it.
Yeah, you speak about the supporters. It was incredible that day because we only had average home gates of about 12,000 that season. And yet at Highbury, 25,000 turned up. And I can remember arriving there, and there were just Rangers fans everywhere, weren't there?
Yeah, it was a magnificent turnout. And I still bump into QPR supporters today who were there that day. And for them, that was one of the biggest moments in their times following the club. I don't think any Ars fan that was there that day will ever forget it.
Fantastic. And then, as we said, there were still, maybe 18, 20 minutes left. It went so slow from the stands. It seemed as if the old, the clock on the clock end had stopped. It was so nail biting, wasn't it?
That's right. That was the worst thing about that clock, because you kept looking at it and the big arms wasn't moving round. Certainly, you know, the minute arm wasn't moving. We had to be. I think our game management was really good. We broke the game up. We had to defend for our lives, because obviously the pressure came on. And I thought, you know, Glenn Roeder and Bob were absolutely immaculate at centre halves that day, because that was a difficult task in holding West Brom at bay, but they did.
Tremendous. And then when the final whistle went, the scenes were amazing, weren't they? Right into the dressing room as well.
Yeah, they certainly were. My daughter, I'm just looking, actually, one sec. My daughter actually, she's a bit of an artist, has actually drawn a picture of me that just after the game with my arms aloft. I've got that as a memory in my study here, which is something that I'll always remember. Crying, I was crying, as were a lot of the lads. The emotion of just realising that we were going to go to an FA Cup final.
I can even remember the players. I mean, the fans were all celebrating in the street afterwards, and the players opened the windows of the dressing room and looked out onto the street, and you were all celebrating with the fans afterwards, weren't you?
Yeah, that's right. There were the little windows in the old dressing room at Highbury, the marble halls. There were like little windows from the dressing room that opened out onto the main street there, and one of the lads opened a window, and right underneath us were hundreds of QPR fans who spotted where we were. And that was it. There was a sing-song, there was celebrations, and that went on for quite some time. And that was really something brilliant.
Yeah, I was right in the middle of it myself. Now, obviously, you said about Terry Venables. It was a masterclass from him all the way through that cup run, particularly the semi-final. What was he like as a manager and a coach?
Well, I always describe Terry as he'd put sessions on in the week, and all of a sudden something would happen in the game on the Saturday, and you'd realise that that was exactly what you'd been working on. He had this great insight into how the game was played, how he wanted his team to play, and he was able to obviously to teach players, show players exactly how it would work in training, and which more often than not it did in the games. And a lot of players, I think, developed their whole game under Terry Venables and will be indebted for him. And me as a striker, there were times when I'd make runs that we'd worked on and things would happen and chances were created, or I was in the right place at the right time. So, I worked for him 3 times over my career, but that spell at QPR was absolutely fantastic.
Now, on to the FA Cup final itself. And in those days, probably younger supporters nowadays won't appreciate this, but it was the biggest day of the football season, wasn't it?
It certainly was. It was the last day of the season. There was always this big build-up to it, a whole week where nothing was talked about apart from the FA Cup final, the 2 teams, who was playing, who might not be playing. Obviously, the runs that you'd been on to get to the FA Cup final. It was the showpiece game of the season. And, every schoolboy's dream was to play in a cup final. And, that was to be my first. And it's one you always remember. You remember that build-up. You remember what you were doing, how you were going to a hotel before the game, going to Wembley, down Wembley Way with thousands of supporters as the bus passes down that into Wembley itself. The whole thing is unlike any other game that you play in.
You're absolutely right. I mean, the television build-up used to start at 9 o'clock in the morning, didn't it? And go all the way through. The players were having breakfast at the hotel and so on. And as kids, we grew up watching that, didn't we?
Yeah, watching and always dreaming of being able to take part in an FA Cup final. And looking back on it, and people say even before getting to a cup final, if you get the chance, take it all in, because you don't get too many chances in the FA Cup. And if it happens, make the most of it. But the worst thing of all is it just does fly by. That whole week flies by, and before you know it, you're there and you're in the game and the game starts.
You were quite a young man at that stage. I know you'd had a couple of big transfers, but you were back at QPR, and it must have been so exciting for you as a youngster, really.
Yeah, I just turned 21 on the Thursday. I was allowed actually to come home on the Thursday night to celebrate with the family my 21st birthday. And then obviously 2 days later, there I am playing in an FA Cup final. It was magical. There was only one thing that really, I think, threw me out, was that the TV then would normally interview you as you walked out to have a look at the pitch and take in the atmosphere. And Brian Moore took me to one side and they linked me to the family bus. I knew the family were coming. They were all coming on a bus from Essex to Wembley. And they linked me to my father, who's actually up on the gantry, on the TV gantry. They'd arrived, the family had arrived, and I had no idea that was going to happen. And that I think unsettled me a little bit, because I was trying to stay completely focused on what was going to happen. This is the FA Cup final. Nothing's going to distract me. And I think just not expecting that interview to happen just took me a little while, I think, just to calm down and get my mind back on the job that was in hand.
Now, early on, I think you went over an advertising hoarding or something, but did you twist your ankle? You tried to carry on, but you could only sort of carry on for about an hour, couldn't you?
Yeah, 2 minutes in, Tony, I chased Tony Galvin back down the touchline, and he turned inside. As he turned, I tried to check with him, and I completely rolled my left ankle. I actually broke the capsule in my ankle, which at the time I thought, I've just twisted it, I'll carry on, and I did. Although I've got to say, within sort of 5-10 minutes, I was quite lame, to be honest. I went in at half time. They X-rayed it. There was again, Wembley had an X-ray machine, which no other football club in the world had at that time. They X-rayed it to say that although the bone wasn't broken, the capsule was. The doctor said, you can't go on, you can't carry on. And it was like, absolutely not, strap me up, I'm going back out. But I really was a passenger for really from the second minute. So it was quite devastating, really. And I came off just about 5-10 minutes into the second half, because I was limping. I was really struggling, and obviously I couldn't then play in the replay on the Thursday. So that was a massive blow to get to the FA Cup final, and then that happened.
So the match itself, the first one, a 1-1 draw. I mean, Spurs, a really good top-flight team. We did really well to battle back. We fell behind and we battled back through a Terry Fenwick goal. It was a great QPR performance, wasn't it?
It was a great performance, a great cup final. It was, it was two very good teams. I think that in the first game we were very unfortunate because when we did equalise, we were the more likely. I think we had that confidence to even go on and win it. And I think we were unfortunate not to win that first game. Obviously, then with the draw, we went to a replay on the Thursday night. It wasn't a long wait. It was Thursday. Unfortunately, I went into Plaster. I went into Pot and just had to be an observer and a supporter for that Thursday game.
And on that Thursday night, I'm sure you're cheering everything on. We fell behind early on to a penalty, but after that, it was all QPR, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. I think we didn't buckle. I think it was a penalty kick where Spurs went in front, but I think from that moment we really took the game to them. We were absolutely fantastic. We really were.
Do you remember there was a disallowed goal by Gary Micklewhite, and nobody knew why it was disallowed?
Yeah, no, I remember Gary scoring, and I think it was, I think we were all bemused as to why there was why it was disallowed. It was really strange, and I think perhaps then you just sense that maybe it's not to be for us. That this FA Cup we weren't going to be victorious.
And as you said, you'd gone into Plaster. Were you watching from the dugout or from the stands, or?
Yes, I was actually in the stands, yeah, just behind the dugout with obviously members of the club, and I remember watching the game. It was one where you think we've really played well. We're unfortunate not to win.
So as we said, 40 years ago, but it seems like yesterday. And for you personally, it sounds like you have great memories and great affection for that period in your career.
Absolutely, yeah. It was one of it's one of the most pleasing times. I always felt I was still developing as a player. I was playing in a great team with a really good bunch of lads who, I think we had great respect for each other. We believed in each other, and I know it was a very successful time for the club, and it was great to be part of.
And we went on from that, didn't we? We won promotion the following year. We finished 5th in the top flight and qualified for Europe. It was a time of great progression, wasn't it, at Loftus Road?
It was, yeah. I think each stage that we went through, we grew as a team. I think individually the players got better. Collectively as a group, we become a formidable team. Obviously, winning promotion, we actually, I thought were really dominant that following season in the league, and then it took us to a position where we ended up qualified for Europe. So everything was going in the right direction. The club was getting stronger, the team was getting better, and success was on its way.
Well, finally, great memories, and you still go back to QPR quite regularly. You still take a big interest in the club and wish the club well, don't you?
Absolutely, yeah. As I say, I grew up at the football club. My grandfather took me to watch my father play. I spent many a time. I'd always said it's my second home, and when I walked in as an apprentice, I just felt at home because I knew the club, knew people there, and always have a real soft spot for the club. Love going back. Still see faces that I saw when I played when I was growing up as a kid. So. That will never change. It was my first club. I always say it was my first club, and it always will be my first club.
Clive, thanks very much for your time. All the best.
Cheers, Tony.